Hey guys, come follow me. We're in Exodus 7 to 13, and this is the story of the plagues and the whole let my people go. Most of you have seen either the Prince of Egypt or the Ten Commandments or both, so have a fairly good understanding of the story. And it's a very probably, apart from Noah and the Ark, probably the most famous religious Bible story, or Christ and Easter, Christmas. Those sort of four seem to rate at the top of everyone's knowledge, whether they're church people or not. People seem to know about them. So this one is probably fairly familiar. So for that reason, I've decided, under inspiration, of course, as I always do, to sort of teach more about the plagues and give you a different picture, because you know the story part. So let's look at it from a bigger picture point of view. Makes more sense. Now, I apologize, there is concreting going on next door, so if you hear that grinding kind of ugly noise, can't help it. It's what neighbors do, right? So, let's start off in Exodus 17. We're going to run through them. It might go a little fast and some of them might be a little long because I got a lot of notes. But I'm going to try and keep it succinct for you, or, appropriate, if you will. So, in Exodus 7, 14 to 25, we find out that Pharaoh's heart has already hardened. And if you look at, I'll do my best here to switch between this. So, in 7, chapter 7, you start at 14, and the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuses to let the people go. It's just not going to happen. Because you remember last week we talked about Moses went in and did what he asked, let my people go, and Pharaoh's like, no, and then made it harder. He also says, who's this Lord? Well, he's about to find out. So from 14 through, he again says, the Lord says, go and turn the river to blood, and all the water turns to blood. So that's the first one. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at the actual plagues themselves. But Pharaoh's heart has already hardened. He's already been brought up to think that he is as of God. That's what the pharaohs and the queens of Egypt were brought up to be, was to be like the gods. They believed that when they died, they were going to go on and be a god. So, to be like that, they're raised to be that they are everything. And Egypt is the best, the most powerful country or place on the world. So he is like king of the world, right? Thinking that he's got this power. And, Moses and Aaron coming in and saying stuff, he's just like, whatever. So, here Moses and Aaron perform the first plague. Now the plagues come in threes, except for the last one. There's actually 10. A lot of people think there's 7. There's 10. Some get missed out because they're just not as famous, maybe not as gross, I don't know, or as horrible, but there's 10. And Pharaoh had already hardened his heart before this even began, and Moses and Aaron's attempts to convince him of the Lord's power just did not work. You see, for the first few, that the magicians were able to match it, and even they tapped out and said, look, this is God's power here, and we'll cover that. Pharaoh did not know the Lord, but he was about to. So this is not a story of punishment, but rather a story of chances and education to both Egypt and Israel of who the Lord Jehovah is. Right? So it's education to both Egypt and Israel of just who Jehovah is. Because they don't really know. Even though Israel believe in him, they don't really know him very well. They've kind of lost that a little bit, lost that sense. They've been under Egypt's rule for a long time, under slavery, and have just kind of lost that connection. They were crying to him, they were praying to him, please deliver us. But they kind of sort of don't know if his power is more than the Egyptian gods. They've just been around it too long, Just need that reminding, that education part. The development of the story of Pharaoh is one to watch. He was raised to be as the gods, as I said, and you'll see this in verse 23 of Exodus 7. Verse 23, and Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and neither did he set his heart to this also. And the footnote meaning paying no regard even to this. So he was just like, whatever, I don't care. You try and do whatever you want. I'm paying no attention. So yeah, he was raised to have that arrogance that was part of who he had to be as a pharaoh. In the beginning, it was an inconvenience, which we'll see, as I said, and in the end, he is heartbroken and grieving. So let's learn about these plagues and the significance they played, right? Now, Pharaoh, through this, you're going to think, oh my gosh, horrible, horrible person. And yet it's all about chances for Pharaoh. It's all about educating Israel. And there's some questions I'm going to ask you at the end of insight number 5 and see where you fit with that and what answers you have. So look for that too. Now, so much notes I couldn't fit it in. So, Alma 12:9 talks to us about hardening of hearts, because that's really what we see, and we see that a lot today too, where people just harden their hearts against the prophet, because that's what Moses was. Aaron was a prophet in his own right too. This would be like the quorum of the 12, the first presidency, right? They are prophets, seers, and revelators. So, hardening their hearts against them is not going to help you. Hardening your heart against Christ is not going to help you. It's just not. We see that through the Book of Mormon so much, probably better explained than the Bible, but we will see it in the Bible too. You remember in Noah's day, those people hardened their hearts, but this is like the king of the world, really, as I just discussed. So, Alma 12:9, if you go and read that, have a read of that. But it explains that he that will not harden his heart, to him is given the greater portion of the word, as in the gospel, until it is given unto him to know the mysteries of God, until he knows them in full. And that's really what happened to Moses and Aaron. It was their growth period as well. You see them go from, like Moses last week, I don't know that I can do this, I'm overwhelmed, this is too much for me, send anybody else. And then the Lord says, look, go get Aaron. They go together. And by the time they leave Egypt, Moses is kind of grown into himself, and he has that confidence. He still has Aaron around and as a mouthpiece and like a help, but he's grown. So you'll see that as well. So there's a lot to learn from this week. The Come Follow Me manual has some really great things in it around hardening your heart and some other things. And I thought that was lovely, but we've had that lesson a lot. And while I absolutely advocate for following Come Follow Me manual, and if you're going to teach that. But this was so interesting about the plagues, I just had to share. So we're going to do that. So hang around and we'll get into the first 3, which are blood, frogs, and lice. Yeah, right? Okay, I'll see you there.